Welcome to Alfredo's Size 3 Taco Truck, a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast, the only podcast where we all kiss each other on the mouth right before we start recording. I'm Vincent Curkov.
I'm Pat Van Value.
I'm Nate Horn.
Why did you say that? I'm Alex.
Because it's true. That's how it works.
Yeah, this monitor tastes fucking great.
Nate, what are we talking about?
What are we talking about today, folks?
So, we got a bunch of little stuff. I guess let's talk about our own events first to get those plugs done. Squad Goals is coming up in like 2 weeks, which means you have a week to sign up if you still want to join Squad Goals. We're up to 22 teams, which is a fuck ton of people. Kind of more than I expected us to get with the short time frame we had, so I'm very excited about that. If you are in the event, note that list lock is going to be Sunday the 10th, so make sure your lists are in Longshanks by the 10th or 12th.
The 10th is a Friday.
Yes, thank you.
Wait, list lock is Sunday or Friday?
Sunday.
Okay.
The 12th.
Cool.
Yes.
The 12th. Got
Thank you for the correction. So make sure your lists are in Longshanks by then, or I'll have to come chase you down and yell at you. What did we have? Oh, if you haven't heard, we are allowing people to use the new Spider Foes, assuming you can get the models purchased and assembled. There are no painting requirements of Squad Goals, so you don't have to worry about that, but you do have to have them assembled. If you want to put them in your list, feel free. Note that if you can't get the models in hand by Saturday, the day of the event, we will ask you to swap those out on like a 1-for-1 basis. So you can't change anything else about your roster, but if you put Shocker in there and you don't have Shocker, you can swap in whatever other single model you want that your team isn't playing and you aren't playing. But no crisis changes, nothing like that. You're stuck with everything else. It's just the things you couldn't get your hands on, we can swap out on a 1-to-1 basis.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
What was the other? Oh, the other question I've seen a couple times. I think everybody has understood this one. It is not a timelines event. We are not using the timelines set of models. It is a challenger event using the standard timeline because AMG refuses to buy a thesaurus. All that means is that it's the same model pool and card pool you would see at any normal event. Right. The standard timeline is just what their term is for card rotation. So, all you've gotten bitter rivals and all those cards that got rotated out, can't play them. But it's the same model pool, the same card pool that you've been playing at tournaments. Nothing special there. It is not a timelines event.
Yeah, just to reiterate and be extra clear, it's a premier competitive event, which means it's on the timeline. That's very different from being on timelines, the premier competitive format.
Thank you, bots.
Yeah. No problem.
So yeah, Squad Goals. Vince, did you have second win news you want to share?
Second one has a date. It's
Holy shit.
October 19th and 20th.
Hooray.
Woohoo. So we exactly conflict with WTC. I'm sorry.
Hooray!
Hooray.
But to be fair, this is our date. Get out of here. I don't care that you're a million worlds away. Give me my GD Canadian players back.
Thanks for censoring that for the kids.
I did it for the Canadians.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we looked at some other dates, but in all honesty, even if I could push it a week forward or a week back, we'd still lose those players.
Yeah.
And
Definitely. Yeah.
it's not actually a meaningful conflict for turnout.
No, both events are going to do just fine.
It's mostly just about a lot of the people going to WTC are people that I really like and have come to Squad Goals before or have come to Second Win before. And I would love to see them there. And that's the only reason for me to try to avoid that date.
Yeah, it's a bummer, right? It's a bummer that they can't come to Second Wind. It's a bummer that it makes it hard for us to go to WTC.
Yeah. Oh well, though. It's still going to be awesome. Still at Alarmist Brewing and Tap Room. So October 19th to 20th. Tickets will go on sale the Monday after Squad Goals. Which,
I didn't even know that. Wow.
which, if I recall correctly, is the 20th of
You recall
May.
correctly.
Yes.
Is it?
So that's 15 days from now. But 15 days from when we're recording. It's a number less than 15 from when you're listening to this. It may
Do you
even be in
really
the past.
want to do this on like the day you're moving?
It's the day before I'm moving. I'm flying the 21st.
Yeah, so he's not going to be busy.
It's only going to be a problem if Second Wind doesn't sell out in one day, which
Fair enough.
wasn't a problem. Tickets. So we'll put more information. Check the website for everything. We are going to have a later start time to ticket sales, so that way the West Coast can actually buy tickets if they want to.
It was very. I know a lot of people here were very sad that by like 7:30 a.m. here, the event was already sold out.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Central Time people were mad at me about the hour at which it sold out, including Nigel, who was like, I'll just drive to work. It's 8 o'clock. I'll get to work. And he was like, they were sold out by the time I got to work. But yeah, Second Wind, tentatively titled The Sinister Sixth. Because it's the sixth Second Wind. We're doing it again. Everybody, it's going to be great. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah.
All right, what are we actually talking about today?
Well, we can segue quite nicely here into a discussion about GTs and if Second Wind is going to be a grand tournament or just an okay tournament.
All right. So, fun fact, and I'll probably be tipping my hand here and end up not getting the GT by explaining everything here. Second Wind applied to be a GT. Now, everybody that's...
Should we... Hold on. Sorry. Do we need to tell people what a GT is?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
You kind of need to tell me what a GT is. I read everybody's funny takes about it, but I never actually read the document. So I don't know what you're talking about, really.
So GTs, grand tournaments, are a way to have AMG officially support your event.
Okay.
This is largely a replacement for the World Qualifier system. So not the big Worlds event that we're going to talk about, but there used to be, qualifiers around the world that you'd play in to get a spot in Worlds, right? Kind of like an LVO Invitational. You'd
There
play
were?
in those. Yeah, not for Marvel, but for other AMG games. So Legion and X-Wing.
okay.
Yeah, the
And
formerly
Armada.
Fantasy Flight games.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I understand now. I
And-
thought there was like a world championship in Marvel before this that I'd
No.
never heard of.
That would be pretty incredible, but no.
Yeah.
Fantasy Flight had them, and then when AMG took up the games, they kept supporting it in the exact same manner Fantasy Flight used to. But they're getting rid of that circuit, right? I don't think they want to pay for plane tickets for people anymore, things like that. And so now they have grand tournaments as their way of officially supporting events. So you apply to be a GT. There's a form you got to fill out with a hell of a lot of lead time. I think applications are due May 1st for any event held between June of this year and May of next year. So if you're doing an event like April of next year, you have missed the deadline to apply, which is insane to me.
That is kind of wild. Well, this is serious business, Nate.
The requirements are pretty straightforward, right? It has to be a venue, has to be open to the public, at least 32 players, and then you have to follow their event packets, which is different per the different games. For Marvel, you have to follow the Challenger event document exactly as written, which has some interesting implications that I think Vince is going to talk to in a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, what's confusing about this, and I'm looking at the page, nowhere does this tell you what you as the TO actually get out of this. There was, I think it was even like Facebook, a vague promise of prize support, but on the Grand Tournaments page, none of that is mentioned.
Huh.
Yeah. So I assume that they just haven't fully locked down the exact logistics of it and don't want to overpromise, as certain items are probably still in production, right? If they're doing new rules or new special measurement tools like they did for Adepticon that one year, and that's what every single tournament gets, is enough for every players or something like that, or top 8 all get those. But if they're not going to be produced in time for an event, you can't promise those to people if it could fall apart you end up in the Guild Ball syndrome by like being too open, because then you set people up for disappointment. So I think you just kind of have to take them at their word that they're going to put something here worth supporting, and that it will help, bring visibility to your event, and you get to interact with AMG in some way in building your event. I think all that's great. All that's a thing that when I switched to Marvel for Second Wind, that I wish they were doing, and they had no system to set up for, and I reached out to them to try to like get something like this going, and they were like, we really only do the challenger packs or like the organized play kits, like work with a game store, do that. So I love that they're doing this in this order. Now, there's a couple things in this document that are a little rough, in my opinion. And I think, I believe the wording on the application was that you were going to follow the Challenger event packet exactly. And then exactly was in all caps. I filled out one for Second Wind. And I intend to literally do the letter of that exactly. So what are the things that would make somebody like kind of wary of doing this document? Like, so we know that there's some kind of prize support, some kind of official thing. Those are the reasons to be doing it. But what are like the hang-ups here? Hang-ups are, we can start with like the small ones: official cards, official miniatures, official dice. I don't think any of those are terribly big. It's a little bit annoying for us because we give out prize dice that Frelinger makes. Before everybody gets too excited, I will explain. Nobody should be mad about how Second Wind's being run. The Second Wind's really not changing.
I'm mad as hell.
Okay. I don't think any of those are big deals.
They're understandable, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
I get it.
lame to not let people use custom dice. Who cares? They're just fucking cubes of plastic. Get over it.
I would
But it's
also
fine.
be. I mean, it's their, like they're sponsoring a thing, and it's a product that directly competes with them at their official event. Like, I get it. It makes sense.
Okay. I disagree with the statement that Baron of Dice is competing with AMG. They do not sell that many packs of the red dice for these custom dice to impact their line in any way.
If
They're
they had-
only competing in like the meanest possible way.
Yeah, they are literally competing, but it's not like people that buy Baron of Dice would be buying red AMG dice instead.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. But if AMG ever decided to make another color of dice, they legitimately
Then they can
have...
update the rules. Then we
Yeah.
can come back to this. Anyways,
Yeah.
again, minor thing in the grand scheme, but that one bugs me.
The other thing is that you have to use AMG's timing system, which is random round length, round timers, and the softest dice down I've ever seen in my life, which is when dice down is called on you, you have infinite time to finish the round.
That's amazing.
This is so. Chess clocks are. We all know where the four of us stand on chess clocks. Chess clocks are the best way to run an event. They make the event run on time. They solve the whoever takes the longest gets the most time problem. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes I feel guilty taking a 15-minute turn, even though I'm one of the fastest players ever. But like sometimes there are those really tough things. Where you like need the time to figure it out.
Pat Bots really just cracked up with that one.
I thought you were just going to say locally or something.
Yeah,
I did. I would challenge you.
You just
We
said
should
I'm
play-
one of the fastest players ever without qualification.
Oh yeah, it's our in
I
MCP.
think he's right. I mean, he's probably correct. Like, I would
guess.
put money on Vince to be up there.
But like, I still feel guilty taking like a 15-minute turn in timed rounds, even if I know I've played like 10% of the game that's happened time-wise.
We all
Well,
like chess
yeah.
clocks, right? We can go over their merits again. But I don't
So
want you to leave people hanging about what's going on with Second Wind. So let's skip to that.
Yeah,
real
get,
quick.
get
Okay,
to that,
sorry.
and then we can talk about
Okay,
the GT
fine.
thing. Yeah,
Uh,
because people are burning their Second Wind tickets while they're listening.
they haven't even bought yet.
They're
All right.
pouring out bottles of beer from Alarmist. It's terrible.
So on this, in this rules document, there is a section that talks about the responsibilities of a TO, and it says essentially that to paraphrase it, I wish I had the.
I have it right here.
You have it.
Event
Read it
rules.
exactly to me.
The event organizer should make it clear to players ahead of time what type of event they are running. Which timeline will the event use? Will there be any other special rules governing the event?
All right. So, as TO, I believe if I were to follow this packet exactly, I am allowed to use any special rules to modify this document as long as I still obey by all the other ones. In which case, so I filled it out. I'm sure if AMG listens to this, I am not getting a GT. But I am very interested in what the intention of this, of this effort that they're putting forth, and I want to do that. But
To be clear, Second Wind 6 is going to use the same rules as Second Wind 5. Yes?
yes.
Okay. Let's just level that one out there.
Yeah, it's
So
gonna use the same.
everyone's aware.
It's gonna use the same rules as last time.
Okay.
If they agree to give me a GT, I will roll the random dice in the background to see how long the round timer is, and then we will still just use chess clocks to decide when the round ends. Yeah, okay. So I actually think that the round timers thing is not as big of a deal breaker as people think it is. I think round timers are obviously not as good, but I think if you're going to build a document like this, you kind of have to make it round timers, because otherwise you put another huge hurdle in front of anyone trying to run a GT.
But why do they have to be the worst round timers?
Yeah, that's the actual problem. The problem is it's dice down. Dice down should not be it is impossible to run an event on this packet on time. Dice down has to be brutal and dice down, because the point of dice down is to make the event run on time. I'm not sure there's any difference in this document between the round timers and just being finish the game when you can finish the game. Right, we'll adapt to you.
Do you? Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys were not you, Nate, but Vince and Pat. You guys remember at game night this week when I solved this issue.
God.
So I just need to. I haven't talked to Sam about this yet. I just need Sam to program this for me, because I think it would work best with support from something like Longshanks that can help you run it. But the way that you could do this with the random round timers is you have a thing right now that I'm calling preemptive pairing. And so how it works is that when the round timer ends, if there are people who are doing this dice down thing where they have to finish their round, right? The next pairings for the next round go up, and that game, there's just, instead of putting the winner and the loser, let's say it's a 1-1 game, so the winner is going to end up being 2-1 and the loser is going to end up being 1-2. Instead of putting the winner in 2-1 and the loser in 1-2, because they haven't resolved their game yet, it just puts winner of table 3 as in the next thing, and then loser of table 3 in the 1 and 2 bracket. And then there's just one additional rule that you have to do in addition to the program itself running this, which is that if your game doesn't resolve before the next round after the current one starts, so round 4 but you're still resolving round 2, then you forfeit. So you lost your 2-1 game automatically without playing it. And I think that this will why
it's not even
my proposal seriously.
So first of all, that notion at the end that I could be sitting there 3-0 waiting for my opponent for finals to show up, and
you don't know who it is, and they're still
or
finishing their game.
my opponent for semifinals to show up. He shows up with 10 minutes left, right? I win the game, but I don't ever make it to the finals table because it's taken so long. and I lose,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or
even though I had to
worse.
sit there for like an hour and a half.
Yeah,
That's not
because
even-
you have to play out the previous game. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
or
worst situation that could happen. The worst thing is he shows up with 10 minutes, is playing like Kingpin Criminals, goes up on turn 1, and then the round timer hits. You haven't started turn 2 yet, right? So like he just stalls at the end of round 1 until the round timer hits, and then you lose.
Look, I
well,
just,
no, there's no
I
ever
mean,
dice down
you know,
in his thing.
Everybody knows. Everybody understands that when you make timing decisions for these types of games, there are compromises. Like, with round timers, there's compromises and that people might lose because they're a faster player, like Vince was saying. Death clocks, the compromises are, well, the better player usually wins, which some people don't like. And then with this, you just have to accept the fact that sometimes someone who's supposed to be in the final table of round 5 will still be playing their round 2. I think it's reasonable.
I mean, you also haven't even thought about the fact that, like, to run this event, let's say you have 64 players running in this event, you need 48 tables because you need tables to go put people that are at games that still have tables going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they could just add that to the GT thing.
You just demand that everybody have like 50% more tables.
Yeah.
Wait, why is it capped at 50% more tables?
It's definitely not, Pat. I mean,
Yeah.
you need
No.
theoretically enough tables to run.
2 parallel events.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
because like as
Well,
no,
because
because
the
they're
people
still
that are waiting
trapped
for their
over there.
opponent, they don't
like,
have to sit at a table. You just need enough tables to run the event normally, and then you also need somewhere for those people to sit.
Okay, this is the dumbest. I can't believe we've wasted so much time on this. I have like legitimate things to talk about.
Hold on. I
with the
have
GT
an
event.
earnest
Yeah.
GT. I have an earnest GT question.
Yeah, go for
Until
it.
Nate
terrible.
read that blurb, it did not occur to me that you could apply, and I guess I didn't read the form, but that you could apply to run like the shitty timeline as the timeline for your GT. So like in principle,
Could
you run a
run it.
GT
Yeah.
where we're all playing with drop off.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it says what timeline you're
Yeah.
running. Yeah.
Well,
you
so
can choose
that's
any fucking
in
thing.
the Challenger document. The GT
Okay.
might specify a timeline. I am looking.
I thought you just.
It
read
does
those,
not.
and it said, oh.
No, the thing I read is from the Challenger document. The
Oh, sorry,
timeline
sorry.
has rules on top of that, right? Because we haven't even gotten to
Yeah.
my least favorite rule change with GTs, which are specific to GTs and not in the Challenger doc.
Okay.
What's your least
What is
favorite
that?
change?
That they require one judge per
Oh,
16 players.
Yes, this is
Oh.
the one that I think is absolutely ridiculous.
The fuck?
what? Why do they?
Yeah.
But, sorry. Yeah.
We were talking about chess clocks being an unreasonable ask of a TO, but having 4 judges for a 64-player event is a lot. And that's
I
why
do-
we're all judging second wind.
I have put you all down as judging second win if we become a GT. I'm sorry, Nate, you're not playing. We need you to man the bar. Just sit there and drink, Nate. You're TOing. I get a little bit of what they think they're doing with this rule, which is that like they want there to be a level of like responsiveness and care at the event. And they don't want like there to be a line for judge calls, but MCP doesn't have that problem very much. I think
the game.
judge calls
Yeah.
like resolve themselves very quickly, and often like I felt like half of the judge calls I saw at Adepticon were like question, TO picks up the card that the question is about, reads the card, and then the players no longer have the question.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know. This is probably maybe a little unnecessarily pessimistic about the creation of this document, but I think, high level, they probably went into this document wanting to standardize tournaments that they're willing to give prize support to, and want people attending those tournaments to feel like they're participating in like high level competitive Marvel Crisis Protocol that's like, the world standard of the game, and that they being the attendees can expect a good, fairly run, efficient tournament where there's no problems and the best player wins. I assume that's what they're going for. But most of the listed requirements, well, maybe not most, I don't know about that, but a lot of these listed requirements feel like things where they got to the part with clocks and they were like, ah, shit, we have to say something about clocks. What should we say? And then they got to the part about judges and it's like, ah, shit, we have to say something about judges. What should we say? Because I don't really think, yeah, like Vince is saying, you need to have judges. Like, that's definitely true. And certainly more judges is literally better, probably. But, like, they didn't think about, I guess, how, like, they've sacrificed a lot of, like, practicality and also, in my opinion, at least from my experience, ignored a lot of what the community already has decided is good about running Marvel Crisis Protocol tournaments in order to achieve this specific idea of legitimacy. And that's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, like, I get they want more than just one guy running a GT, right?
Yes,
like,
that
there would
makes
definitely
sense.
be people who'd be like, there's a 64-player event. I run these out of my, I run tiny events. Surely I can scale up to 64 people. And then you have one guy running around and it's a bad time. So, like, I'm totally
His name,
on
Nate
board.
Horn. Sorry, go ahead.
But I just, like, they just did the math wrong. You know what I mean? Like, if it was one judge plus an additional judge for every 32 players, right? Or it's one judge, minimum 2, right? Like, there's definitely other ways they could have done this, but needing 4 for something the size of Second Wind is insane. And it's just not feasible, right? Like, finding people who want to go to an event to not play and stand around and watch other people play the game that they like playing is not easy.
Yeah.
Also, I really think it's weird that they haven't made it clear what they're delivering. I understand that they want to be careful about that because they might overpromise and underdeliver. I think Vince is totally right. But then why did the deadline for applying already pass? Like,
Well, it's like the price support. It's just like lead time. So, like, by the time those events happen, the price report will be done and we'll know what it is. But, like, I don't know.
It does say, sorry, I did find in there that there will be, you earn rewards per game completed in the event. Thus, players do not lose out on most of the rewards simply because they had a bad first round. So it sounds like there will be something similar to Adepticon.
where it's like
games
you raffle or
gets
whatever.
you, And also,
GT
secondly,
whatever.
GTs also reward the top 4 players with higher value rewards and, of course, a trophy for the event champion. A complete list of prizes will be announced once the events are selected and scheduled. So there is a little bit of language there that I missed.
Okay, well, I mean, the trophy's exciting. I mean, I like trophies in general.
Yeah.
It wasn't the bracket, wasn't the time. I was about to say timeline. Now I like laugh every time anything references timeline related to Marvel Crisis Protocol. Wasn't the time frame for these events that people were applying to May of this year to April of next year? That's what you said, right?
Yes.
So are there? It's May 5th. Are there any GT events going on right now?
I missed.
It's June, but-
So June.
Oh, it's June. June.
The
Oh, sorry,
selection
never mind.
will be completed by May 15th. So on the 15th, we'll
Oh.
know who is and isn't a GT, and the events will be
Yo.
between June and May.
Cool. Okay, I have no more questions.
Yeah. So, I think this is like a little bit of an over ask, in my opinion. Like, I'm curious as to whether this was like, I could definitely see some of the games in their catalog requiring more judges. Like, because games are on like a scale of like rules clarity of like, I think MCP has one of the cleanest rule sets for miniatures. And then there's stuff like Games Workshop where there's like tons of fights about every single rule, and like resolving that stuff can be very complicated. Ed could tie up a judge for minutes at a time. And so if,
we don't know enough about their other game. Like, nobody here plays Legion or Armada, so.
But like if Legion has that problem,
Vince, you have a very deep understanding of the Marvel Crisis Protocol rules, and you also really like niche rules interactions. I
Sure
am
do.
confident that if you wanted to, you could waste a judge's time for like a full 2 hours.
I'm sure that I could. I probably would struggle to also be myself and not be absolutely.
I mean, you might lose
awful.
on round timer while doing that, but
The freaking man at Adepticon, there was a question about Eye in the Sky that I absolutely knew the answer to, and it was just like, my opponent just didn't believe me how I and this guy worked. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, this is what a judge is for. Let's call a judge. Right. And then the judge asked, like, or the judge read it and like could see me going, I know how this works. And normally if this was any other table, he would walk over to me and ask me how it worked. And instead he has to just like stare at me and hope he gets it right.
That's funny. Man, speaking of Adepticon and the round timers, there were 3 games that I played in the 2 official Adepticon events that I played. And I you know, I'm not like Vince, I'm not the fastest player ever, but I am a pretty fast player. There were 3 games where I straight up could have slow played and won. And I won them anyway, but like one of them I think I could have not only slow played in one, but there was one where the round timer seemed shorter. I don't know. I wasn't paying too much attention, but it felt like it rolled on the lower end. And
Jesus Christ.
And like I think I could have slow played and won that, and it would not have even been suspicious. Like I could have, you know, pretended I was thinking for long enough to get to the round timer ending and just win without rolling any dice. And it's like, that's fucked, man. I don't know. like I didn't do that, and I won't be doing that, no matter how many GTs I attend. But it's fucked up that I even had the thought enter my head that I was like, because I was like thinking it, and I was like, no, I shouldn't do that. And then I passed over to him, and then like 2 minutes later it ended, and I was like, damn, I could have given him no chance to get into this game. Anyway.
So yeah, we'll see. I'm curious to see like how stringently they're going to be enforcing these rules, right? Because you're not. I know Alec, the TO in the Bay, is putting on his big event in July and applied to be a GT with a note in the comments being like, "Hey, I'm going to use chess clocks." Like, just so you know, right up front, not even hiding it. This event is run on chess clocks. What are you going to do about it? And so it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to be really interested if he gets accepted and you don't. And then we have to like figure out where the line is on acceptable rule breaking.
I actually
Did he
think.
Put, what are you gonna do about it?
No, he did not.
Oh man.
At least I don't think so. I didn't see the form.
So like, I am earnestly interested
How
in
does
like.
this make you feel, white boy? Sorry. Go ahead.
So I understand like we can be kind of flippant here a bit, but like I am earnestly like curious as to like how they decide to do these. Because I actually think the thing that's going to stop us from getting selected is that I'm in a brewery.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. I actually think that that's like a more legitimate complaint than any of the things that they say in their GT document.
Yeah, I totally
I
understand, and we can go our separate ways because that's the thing I'm not changing about my event. But like, that is a totally legit like worry about it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the rules are very open for what type of event. Like the rules on venue just says must be held in person at a legitimate public venue, and the event must be open to the public.
Legitimate public venue.
Yeah.
So no Smash Melee tournament Pat's House 5, which is at a guy named Pat's house. It is open to the public though. Okay. Is there anything else about GT?
I mean, this is where we probably can talk about the Worlds now that Marvel has its official Worlds event at Adepticon next year in wonderful Milwaukee.
Yo. Hey, Milwaukee's nice. They got Johnny Pastrami up there. They got Red Letter Media. They got New Glarus Beer.
Let me know when you get to the nice stuff.
It's gonna be devoured by the Chicago megalopolis in 70 years. Yeah, I like it up there. Did Vince crash or did he just freeze? We're doing this live, folks.
He's frozen.
There's some struggle over there.
Okay. Well, while Vince is missing, let's just talk about the Worlds because I'm sure he has no thoughts on this anyway. He doesn't care. Nate, explain the Worlds to us.
Okay, so the World Championship is the big event that's going to be at Adepticon next year. To get into the World Championship, you have to qualify through one of the 2 World Open Championship qualifying heats that will also be at Adepticon. So there are no qualifiers throughout the year. There's no other way to get into the World's Finals besides going to Adepticon and playing in one of the 2 heats and doing well enough to qualify.
There's no other way?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's
have to-
the
you just have to go and
Challenger
play.
event. It's the Challenger event from this year with a second qualifying heat to make day 2.
Huh. Why do they
So
call
it
it
doesn't-
Worlds then?
So because they can.
It doesn't
That was
sound
why
like
I
the
was
premier
fucking saying
competitive
Johnny
format.
should do a fucking World Championship lunch meet. It doesn't mean anything. They just did it because they could.
He has to put the location in Milwaukee, though.
Yeah, why is WTC the World Team Championship and not Squad Goals the World Team Championship?
Well,
only have
at
10
least
less
that-
teams.
They got more countries. I think.
Yeah.
It's because all their countries fit inside the United States, distance-wise. They have a better location.
Yeah. Well, that still doesn't explain the Milwaukee one, but
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my issue with this is it's like a World Championship in name only, right? Because like there's a bunch of things that I think are really weird about this. So yeah, you have to go to Adepticon. You have to do well in one of the 2 heats. I don't know if they've said like how many people will make day 2, right? But like, I
I assume it'll be 8 and 8.
wait. So is this this fucking event? Is it a timelines event or is it a timeline singular event?
Unclear.
What? What? I'm outraged. Is it the premier competitive tournament format or is it the good competitive tournament format?
Unclear.
This is bullshit. I
So
don't
what
know
makes
if I'm. Sorry, go ahead.
nah. What makes me think it might be more than 8 and 8, Vince, is so they said the World Open Finals will take place Saturday and Sunday of Adepticon.
Okay.
So the thing you qualify for is a 2-day event, which means the qualifiers have to be, I assume, like one Thursday, one Friday, or something like that.
Pat's got an idea.
I have an idea.
Okay.
So you qualify in the normal challenger format. And what you qualify
And then you have to
for
play
is to play
timelines?
2 days of timelines. And so you're
I don't know.
going to get some people that want to qualify to say they qualified. And then they're just like, fuck this, I'm out.
I don't know if I would be angrier if the Worlds was timelines, the 3-day plural thing, because that format is stupid and shouldn't be the top competitive format, or if it was timeline, the singular, the normal event that all the tournaments are, because then what the fuck are they talking about timelines being the competitive tournament format?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's very unclear. I'm curious because, like, I don't know if they do a 32-player event that qualifies so many people from the preceding heats, right? Like,
Yeah.
how you could go X and 2 pretty easily and make a top 16 to make day 2.
What if it was 2 16-person heats and 100% of the participants qualified for Worlds?
I kind of assume that they're just going to have 2 like very large events, like as large as they can fit in Adepticon, and they're going to play 4 rounds and be like, undefeateds, go.
But why would they need 2 days for the finals at that point? And
I don't know,
also,
maybe they have dreams of how big this is going to be.
well, so what's also fun about this, by the way, is so this schedule I'm talking about where they say the heats will be, so they don't say anything about what days the heats will be on, just that the finals are Saturday and Sunday. This schedule is true for all 5 of their games. So they're going to be trying to do qualifying heats
What?
for all of their games on the same days.
It also might be that like maybe the MCP final is on Saturday, and then the Shatterpoint is on Sunday, and they use the same tables.
Oh, that could, okay. Yeah.
So like these 5 games, their finals will be on Saturdays and Sundays.
Well, but doesn't that still won't the Heats still be the ones that have the most players? Like,
Yes.
Yeah,
I would assume.
The crunch for table space on Thursday and Friday is going to be insane.
Yeah, it's not like
Yeah, I
Saturday,
guess that's
Sunday
true.
probably won't have a table issue. It'll be
Well,
the,
like,
the preceding
Maybe
days.
we're underestimating the amount of extra space they picked up when they changed venues.
Yeah, maybe Games Workshop isn't showing up at Adepticon anymore. It's all AMG.
Yeah, right. Like the best Golden Demon turnout ever. I don't think that's changing.
I think you're right. Are we all going to Worlds?
Maybe.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah, that's how I feel too.
I mean, if Adepticon was still in Chicago, like 100%, like why not?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously,
Yes.
but yeah,
As I've told many people, the only reason I go to Adepticon is because I get to stay on Pat's couch, and it becomes the cheapest convention I could possibly go to. I don't know if the Pat couch option is a real good one when we'd have to drive to Milwaukee every day. It
it
doesn't
definitely
feel
loses
great.
some value. Yeah,
This is a lot. Like, you might be making that drive on your own.
So like budgeting for Adepticon now includes a hotel and a flight to Milwaukee, which will probably be more expensive than a flight to Chicago for me.
You could
so.
still fly to Chicago and then carpool up.
That's true. So it's not out of the question. It just Adepticon used to be a no-brainer. I think for all four of us, based on that proximity, and
Yeah, yeah.
Milwaukee is just far enough to make it not a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see how this changes stuff for Adepticon. Hank, who runs Adepticon and sponsors both of our events with Terrain, is very good at what he does. If I had to guess what this change is going to happen to Adepticon, I think there's going to be a slight dip in attendance next year, and then Adepticon will continue to grow at the rate it's growing. Like, I think
Yeah.
it will be I think it is a long-term decision that will have
Definitely.
short-term uncomfortability.
yeah.
I also think, so I know we're making fun of this Worlds event for being kind of confusing and unclear, and also probably shouldn't call itself Worlds, but like the idea of Adepticon having two qualifying heats for one big, showdown, whatever you want to call that, kind of the way Lock and Load used to be run, is cool. I like that. Sounds more interesting than the Thursday, Friday challengers thing that they did this year. Right. I guess I'm kind of assuming this won't all be timelines all the way through. And if it is timelines or whatever, then I'll be mad. But if I assume this is just normal Marvel for the heats and the finals, this is cool. This is a better format than what they've done for Marvel at
True.
Adepticon before.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that this is just straight up like if the LVO invitational system didn't exist, we'd be like, this is what we would have expected them to do. The
LVO invitational system.
Yeah,
didn't
I don't
exist.
know
Oh,
how
I see.
those are related.
I don't know. I think we're judging it based on how great of a job Tyson and everybody have done with the LVO invitational system, and are expecting something like that. When if we didn't have that, like if you look at Malifaux,
sure.
Malifaux has
Yeah.
always just been like Worlds is a Gen Con. Gen Con is the biggest Malifaux event. Go to Gen Con if you want to play Malifaux at the highest level.
Yeah,
Right. And
okay. I see what
I don't
you're
know
saying now.
I don't know
Yeah.
what else you would have like as a company. This is what I would do.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what they did for Lock and Load for years, and it worked great. So I think I like this change. I just wish we knew more about it.
Yeah, we'll find out more as it comes on. And like a lot of these
definitely.
announcements, the MCP community is like not the target of this stuff because it is kind of
No.
replacing a thing that
Yes.
Legion, X-Wing, and Armada are used to.
Yes.
And
Like, I think this World's announcement came out early because when they did the GT thing and said it's replacing like the World's qualifying circuit or whatever that used to be called, there were so many people on Facebook being like, what, Worlds is canceled? There's no more Worlds. Like, the sky is falling. They're giving up. And so I think they wanted this announcement out there for the Star Wars people to say, no, there's still going to be Worlds. There's still going to be a big event. It's just different. So yeah, this definitely, especially the second one, felt like a Star Wars announcement that happened to have our name on the bottom.
yeah, and it's very clear that AMG is never going to do like a Steam Con type thing. There's not going to be like AMG Con. they're using Adepticon for that. Adepticon is their big convention, and they want it to be big.
Yep.
All right.
Word.
Moving on.
Yeah. We actually have 2 goofs this episode, so maybe we should do one now and then head into...
Excellent. It's time for everybody's favorite segment, the Pat Van Value Valuable Minute, featuring Pat Van Value. Alex, Ander, Bartholomew Box. How does this game work?
Wait, are we doing Back of the Box or the other
Yes, back of the box.
one? Okay, Back of the Box. All right, so Back of the Box is everyone's favorite trivia game about Marvel Crisis Protocol. In this game, we harass Pat Van Value. Vince is going to read the back of a box from Marvel Crisis Protocol. You will remember that those boxes typically have 2 paragraphs. He's going to read the first paragraph, but he's blanked out a bunch of the fucking nouns and verbs and shit. And so it's just like prepositions and articles and so forth left. And then Pat's going to try to guess who's in there. And if he can't do it, then he'll get the second paragraph, which has had the same abuse inflicted on it. And then if he can't get it after that, then I'm going to ask him an unrelated trivia question about the first-person shooter video game Valorant. And then if he still doesn't get that, he doesn't get anything. But if he gets any of the previous things, which I forgot to mention, he'll get points. And he needs an amount of points to win. He can get a maximum of 3 points from each question. And he needs 7 points to win.
He needs an amount of points to win.
Yeah. I did. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Vince, take it away.
Blank, the man who would become blank, faced unimaginable discrimination and evil during the blank's rise to power in World War II. He survived thanks in part to the manifestation of his blank power to control blank. Following the war, he resolved that such a fate would never befall blank. An uncompromising freedom fighter for his fellow blank, his extreme beliefs for blank superiority drove a wedge between blank and his close friend blank. Blank's vision for blank kind caused him to form the blank who fight for blank supremacy.
I don't feel good about this, and I'm feeling real rusty on this whole game show thing.
So you think we should do it twice an episode to like help you?
That's
get
not what
rusty?
I said. It's maybe more fun than I'm bad at it. I'm doing the same thing I always do, where I have like a vague idea, and then I just keep trying to find ways to jam that same word into every blank. So I'm assuming the word mutant's in there, but I'm gonna listen to the second character because I don't know who the other model in the box is, if it is what I think it is.
Okay, second paragraph. Here we go. Blank, known as blank, is a genetically flawed blank. Visibly blank since birth, he was abandoned by his parents to an orphanage where he was ostracized for his appearance. When Blank discovered and recruited him, Blank embraced the mission to conquer the human race who had rejected and degraded him. Blank serves Blank as an unquestioning lackey, using his blank abilities of enhanced jumping and blank.
Enhanced jumping.
I can't tell if Pat's
This
hamming
is
it
like
up or not.
one of the easiest ones we've had in a while.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just because it's like the only part of Marvel that I know well, but like not Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Shadow King,
but just like
Shadow King. Alex is the Shadow King master. He has enhanced jumping.
But he sort of does. I don't know.
No, that's the Professor X side.
Enhanced jumping.
It's a fucked up thing to say, Nate. I'm canceling you.
Oh, fuck.
So I don't know. I got nothing.
You've got nothing.
All right.
Nate is dying.
It's Valorant time, baby.
I just wanted to get to this part, really.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to be happy when we my questions for this. One of the three is very easy, but I'm not starting with the easy one. Sorry.
Okay.
So list 3 of Omen's 4 abilities by name. Any 3 of them.
That's gonna be a challenge.
Tell you the words he says when he casts them.
One is
Any 3.
easy.
You don't even have to name all 4.
3. Okay. One is paranoia.
2.
Yep, that's
yeah.
right. That's his flash. Nice work.
I think
Oh, fuck, nope.
the teleport is called Shadow Step.
Okay.
I have no clue what the others are called.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
Do you want to go back in time and take a guess as to what Marvel model this could be?
So I was
My God.
not really. I don't know.
Not really.
Name a mutant that jumps.
What kind of mutants jump? Um,
Like Shadow King.
Like that, okay.
Nightcrawler teleports. That's not jumping.
Correct. No, it's not. What about a mutant that hops?
Toad?
Yes.
Oh, is this Magneto and Toad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Magneto
So I
famously
was
survived
thinking
the
about.
Holocaust.
Well, I've only watched the one movie where he was in, and I don't think that
In
was
which
in
he
there.
survives the Holocaust.
Was that in there? Okay.
It's
No.
in
So
it's in 3 of the movies.
Well, he saw Days of Future Past, so that's not going to help there.
So I was thinking about the wrong branch of mutants, I guess.
They want to
which
conquer
is-
the human race.
Yeah,
That's
that
a thing
didn't sound.
Vince said to you.
Yeah, I got that, but I was thinking about the ones that don't necessarily want to do that, or at least I didn't think they did, and so I was sort of confused. I have this problem.
I agree with you that Brotherhood are the good guys. Thank you, Pat.
I only think about new models.
Mm-hmm.
I have a
All right,
sliding window
excellent.
of models.
So
In
how
case
many-
you were curious, Omen's abilities are called Shrouded Step, not Shadow Step. Paranoia, Dark Cover is the smokes, and From the Shadows is the alt.
Yeah, yep. Never getting those two.
I thought they were called. I thought it was called Ghoul Mode. All
That's just what I
That's
shout
the
every time.
lifestyle.
right.
How many
Let's.
points does he have, Alexander? Bartholomew
0,
Butts?
making him unable to win.
Excellent.
All right.
Moving on.
Let's see how close you can get.
Blank, also known as the Blank, is a conniving villain whose evil deeds spanned over generations. During the second Blank, he sought any path to power he could find, with no regard for the evil that it would require of him. He performed covert operations in the Blank and led military campaigns in Blank, making him the archenemy of Blank. Blank and Blank's final confrontation in the Blank left both men in suspended animation, and their rivalry continues into the modern age.
What the fuck? I hate this time traveling shit.
Nate is dying.
I know.
Viewers at home?
I think I'm convinced we just play this game for Nate to have a good time.
I think Vince is having a great time.
Dude, I don't know anything about these fucking characters, and I don't care. You said rival, so now all I can think about is the rivals boxes, but I don't think any of those are like a thing. I don't know who is this Shadow King.
Final
Probably
answer?
not. No, I just wanted to say it.
Does it say anything about being good at jumping? Come on.
Well, I know it's not Toad, so that's 1 out of like 160 I can check off.
Hey, it's also not Magneto.
Yeah, well, I guess there aren't 160 boxes. Whatever, give me the second paragraph.
All right. The villainous organization Blank has roots stretching back for many centuries, but most know of its modern incarnation under Blank and the Blank, during the Blank. From here, it has become a globe-spanning terrorist organization bent on world domination. Blank cannot ever truly be destroyed, for if one head is cut off, 2 more shall take its place.
Okay, hold on. I mean, that is how I feel about the Nick Fury grunts.
A clue!
Yeah. Is this... I feel like we've... So I think this is supposed to be Hydra. But I don't know what I'm getting from that. So is this... Who's... I don't know. Is the Strucker box?
Is it your final answer, Pat?
Both about Red Skull. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Strucker box.
This is not the Strucker box.
Okay.
Boom,
Valorant
boom.
trivia.
What?
Valorant
Okay.
trivia.
All right, Valorant trivia, I guess.
All right.
Let's see how many things Pat can get wrong today.
Yeah, this is okay. Well, this one's kind of easy, and then the third one's gonna be rough if you get there. But what was NRG Victor's original in-game name when he started playing professional Valorant for Optic Gaming?
Oh yeah, I know this.
This
one,
is the
obviously.
easy one.
I actually
Yeah.
know this one, so it must be an easy one.
There you go. It's easy.
I can only think of the fucking fillet of fish thing now.
It is not fillet of
It's-
fish.
Yeah. One of those.
I don't know what you're talking about either, but
One of the NA players used to play under the name like Perk 30 Fish Fillet or something.
oh yeah, that's Zekken's.
That's Zekken. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's food. You were pretty close,
Oh, I
actually.
did. Yeah.
He
I
used to go
forgot.
by the name Food when he played in CS:GO and early Valorant.
All
I
right,
could've gotten that one.
excellent. All right, Alexander
Let's see if we
Bartholomew
can go 0
Box.
for 9.
How is Patrick doing? What is his score?
Not great, boss.
Oh, and for our audience at home who also, like Pat, have no idea who the second box was, it's Red Skull 2 and the Hydra Troopers.
I was wondering about that. That was my other choice.
I was wondering that too because I thought that was a description. I mean, it was obviously a description of Red Skull, but I was like trying to remember, or not remember, but decide because I've never voluntarily read a back of the box before. If the grunts got a paragraph, like if they
Yeah.
if they're a high enough rank to be honored with a paragraph.
Yeah, kind of. It just talks
Apparently
about Hydra.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, Pat. I like your odds here. Ready?
Cool. Love it.
Blank, also known as the Blank, has progressed from a critical member of the Blank and Blank opponent to one of the team's most valuable members and leaders. Blank is a Blank with powerful Blank and a secondary Blank that allows her to convert her body into organic Blank. Blank is translucent in this state and retains mobility while being nearly invulnerable.
I'm back to only thinking about new boxes. I know very little about this character other than that they have a Rhinobbery card. I think this is the new X-Men woman whose name I don't know. Who I
be
assume
less
is invisible or
specific?
something. She's it's got a dragon on the card.
I mean, that narrows it down at least, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that one.
That one. See, this
That's-
paragraph had a thing about a dragon, you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sticking-
since Pat
I'm
doesn't
sticking
know
to
the
it.
name, and
Okay, you could read the second paragraph.
well,
Ernest.
that's
Is the second paragraph
Okay.
going to be Iceman? Because it's the one with Iceman.
blank is a blank. Blank is a blank with a wide range of telepathic and telekinetic skills. The hand kidnapped an amnesiac blank and brainwashed and physically altered her, transforming her into its top assassin. Her memories eventually returned, but she retained her new appearance and abilities, including the aptitude to manifest the focused force of her blank power as a blank by intensely channeling and focusing her blank powers into her hands. She creates razor-sharp edges of pure blank energy that she plunges directly into the minds of her opponents.
Okay.
Also,
we're
that
getting
blank was
closer.
entirely in quotes. Patrick is staring back at his wall of miniatures.
I think the second one. I don't know who the other model in the box is now. This doesn't seem right, but the second one sounded sort of like Psylocke, I guess. And I could believe that the first one was Emma, I guess, knowing very little about them. So let's go with that.
So your final answer is Emma Frost and Psylocke?
Yeah.
Yep, you got it. It's Emma Frost and
Holy
Psylocke.
shit.
Oh my god, he got one of the factions he played.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pat has points.
I have
Pat
points.
has points.
How many points?
2 of a possible 9 with a winning score of 7. Pat just barely off the mark this week.
Not quite a passing grade.
Not quite a passing grade.
Oh well.
But you know what? You tried.
There's
There are
always
boots
next
on
time.
there are boots on the ground. You put in the work, and we respect that.
Never gave up.
Never gave up.
I never had the option.
All right, what's our next topic?
What is our
goals.
next topic?
We
Squad goals?
we wanted to talk about if there like building for team events, right?
Ah, fuck.
As people who have gone to a lot of team events
Ah, fuck.
and have a lot of opinions on team events,
Ah.
I think people would be curious. I mean, it's interesting with Marvel, right? Because it's pretty generous as far as like how you build your teams, right? If there's only character uniqueness, like WTC does it, and like Squad Goals does it, right? It's not too complicated to build the team, but I think people want to know, like, are you strategizing? Are you trying to have like a scenario player and an attrition player and something in the middle to try to pick up matchups? Do you have plans for matchups, right? And table selection and anything like that?
Yeah.
Just building and planning for team events is something that I feel the four of us probably have a lot of knowledge about and have never talked about.
You know, I actually want to push back on the thing you said about it being kind of lenient. I mean, it is literally more lenient than it could be, because, like, we could have crisis... can you even mathematically have crisis restrictions? You definitely can for 3 people, but can you for... You can't
Squad
for
goals
5,
is
right? There's
3 people.
That's what I said. No, sorry, not for squad goals.
Oh, but just in general.
I just mean in
So,
general. Like, can you
I've
run a team event with crisis restrictions?
So I've seen it done with 5-man events. There's not enough, but you basically say everybody you take 1 copy of the crisis, right? So if there's like 10 secures, you take those 10, and then you can double up, but you can't triple up.
I see. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, you could have those restrictions, and Squad Goals doesn't, and neither does WTC. But I've played team events in other games, mostly in Guild Ball, other than Marvel, and you know, in like Guild Ball and War Machine and stuff, which are the ones that I'm most familiar with that also have the WTC. It's just like faction restrictions, right? Like we can't both play butchers. One of us has to play butchers, one of us has to play something else. But I actually think that the Marvel thing just by default is more restrictive because every character can play for everybody in Marvel. So like by being character restricted, like if we went to a Guild Ball WTC and I said I want to play butchers, I would be able to play what I think the best version of butchers is. Right? The only restriction is that then Vince and Pat cannot play butchers. But
you're misremembering how Guild Ball worked. It was captain restricted.
Really?
You could play. You could have somebody play
doesn't-
fillet butchers and somebody play ox butchers or whatever.
oh well, yeah.
It doesn't
I
matter
guess.
for this, like, for people who haven't played in Guild Ball, just calling
Okay.
it faction locked is simple enough. And
No,
like,
you're right.
But essentially,
yeah,
it
and,
became faction locked. Was how almost every
Yeah, it
single person
essentially
treating it.
Right, because like most factions would. So I guess you're right. I guess there's a way to lean into that more. But I guess my point was that you only ran into somebody having to play something that they didn't consider to be their best if 2 people on your team thought the same faction was their best. Like if Pat and I were both butcher fiends or whatever. But in Marvel, like I think no matter what 3 or especially 5 affiliations people are playing, there is basically guaranteed to be at least a few overlaps from what people consider to be their optimal lineups, because so much of Marvel involves splashing some, like a few, like 2 or 3 of the 20 or 30 best models in the game, right? And so, like, like just as an example, where our team is playing Shield and Brotherhood and probably X-Force, but Pat is actually still deciding on his final list, but
like
probably
7
Shield
days.
and Brotherhood and X-Force. And like Shield and Brotherhood and X-Force are not super similar affiliations. Like, it's not like we were playing Cabal and Criminal Syndicate or something like that. And yet even still, either 2 or all 3 of us have to compromise something from what we believe to be our best lists. So I think that must be true for almost every team. I think there's extremely few affiliations in this game that don't have like a common favorite thing that a bunch of other affiliations want. So I actually think it's very restrictive, even without. And then, of course, if the tactics cards were restricted, it would be crazy restricted to me. Because
Yeah, I don't think you could ever do restricted tactics cards without
it would be really
making
weird.
it miserable.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, especially just because like there's a handful that are just very popular.
Yeah, I mean, you would end up having pretty weird stuff. Like, I mean, I think like you could do it, but what I would say it would probably result in is that like especially in like a 5-person team with restricted tactics cards, there would be like you would have 2 people that were playing proper normal optimized Marvel, and then 3 people that are extremely not like that are kind of just way lower on the power curve despite playing totally competitive affiliations, just because of how much they've had to compromise with like not having brace or some shit like that. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I think there would be something sort of interesting there, just in terms of like, I'm not saying we should do it, but just in terms of like, I would be interested to see if people play some of the less popular models that do have cards that are like good with that model, but the combination of the card and the model on their own isn't great when you have access to everything. But like, I don't know, Asgard has a bunch of cards that are like totally fine, but are never gonna make a 5 most of the time. Now, I guess it's not a great example because most of the Asgard models are also fine to play, but I'm sure there is some depth there that like our resident snowflake would love to go panning for.
I think it would be interesting to try that just to kind of see. But I wouldn't want that to become like the default format, right? Because I do think you want, kind of like what Bots was saying, the thing for me is like you want to be able to practice for a team event without like making it difficult, right? So if your team event roster is so depowered that you're not really getting good practice out of playing your buddy who's preparing for a local tournament, right? And it's like, does he have to bring his list down, or do you not play your team event, right? You want your team to be roughly comparable to the power level of normal Marvel, because I think it makes practicing with the event not a pain in the ass, both for people who are going and people who aren't going but are friends with people who are going.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I remember people talking about trying to practice for timelines and like, organizing to find other people practicing for timelines, and the restrictive team tournament version of that would probably be even more extreme than timelines. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So in terms of team roster construction, I don't know. I don't think so. I think the way that we've approached it is just trying to get as close as possible to the 3 of us being in our comfort zones. Like, it's not, certainly none of us are like going to a very specific affiliation just to cover matchups that we think we've identified. And then the important idea is just to think about like the really common affiliations that we expect to see, or really powerful ones, and then make sure that we know who we want to get to that matchup, more or less. Like, I think that's like the most important strategical idea. And there are like Vince, you can talk about this more, but the way the types of things that Vince likes to play, as an example, tend to have 1 or 2 matchups that they really, really want to avoid, and also 1 or 2 or 3 or more matchups that are sort of an unusual slam dunk that like Vince's list beats a lot harder than the average list beats. And so having someone like Vince on the team is doing it. Playing well means using Vince correctly in that way, like in the draft.
Yeah, it's kind of like weaponizing the new added aspect of the game.
Yeah.
In that, where there's actual like meaningful decisions making there. Like, I know our buddy Frelinger loves to talk about the fact that like you should just shuffle your cards and deal them randomly, and that should be the matchups. Like,
talking
there's
about
no,
pairings,
that like, there's no actual advantage to be gained in pairings, and I like just don't subscribe to that at all.
Yeah.
Like when we played it at LVO, we knew that like I was very good into Cosmic Ghost Rider, and that we were going to see a Cosmic Ghost Rider like every round because he hadn't been nerfed yet. And boy howdy, did they hand me Cosmic Ghost Rider a whole bunch of times.
Yep, and it worked out.
It did.
Yeah, you guys won that event, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did. Despite me absolutely like spiking the football in the last round on like the 1 yard line.
Pat's got your back.
Yeah,
The only
absolutely.
game of one.
Hell yeah, Pat. We needed you.
Yeah.
When the world needed him most.
I think people overestimate how much value, like if you haven't been in a team event, I think it's easy to overestimate how much value you can eke out of the pairing process, especially at threes. It changes a lot when you get to 5 people, I think. When you're talking about threes, the rule of thumb I tell people is it's just like you get to protect one player from their worst matchup, right? And that's guaranteed. Your opponent can't stop you from doing that, all right? So you always know, like if we go back to pre-nerf Storm, we could just say, Vince, you will never have to deal with Storm. We can guarantee you anything, you know what I mean? Beyond that, who knows what you're going to get, but you will not play your absolute worst matchup. And that's where I recommend people start when they start thinking about this, is just figure out what your single worst matchup is. And then when you get paired up against another team, see what you can like, okay, we have to make sure Bob avoids this, right? Or this dude's matchup is the absolute worst here. And that's what you should try to start with as far as the pairing process goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing to look out for.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the other thing to look out for is like tables and terrain. Like I play Shield.
True.
Shield is very susceptible to blocked lines of sight or like just very heavy cover running around on the table. And you guys did a very good job of protecting me from that, except for the one round where I went to the bathroom, and there were not one but 2 size 3 pieces of terrain that blocked the middle of the board.
And you won.
I sure did. I sure shouldn't have.
Definitely should not have. Yes. I want to back up a little bit and just needle bots for a second. So you said you're mostly focused on trying to keep people in their comfort zones.
Yeah.
Pat, how many games of X-Force have you played?
1.
How did it go?
Not great.
Are you comfortable playing X-Force?
I mean, it's funny because like probably more than I should be, and partially I don't know. Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
no,
Good.
I
No,
just-
good. Continue, Pat. But
like
I have
the
a
other
rebuttal.
thing that I would play is Wakanda, which has its own set of like weirdness for me to trip over in dumb ways, and like I haven't been having a great time with it either. So I'm just looking for something hopefully more consistent, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Pat basically just outlined this, but from my perspective, as captain, my stated goal is to keep all 3 of us in their comfort zones. Please direct me to Pat's comfort zone. I will put him there. But I have been unable to locate it, and Pat is not helping me find it. So
I don't have one.
I've known where Vince's comfort zone is for the last 3 years, and he's there. I have chosen my comfort zone, and I'm there. If Pat had one, he'd be in it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed that was going to be the response there, right? And like I think you're right that you want people to play factions they're most comfortable with, right? Like beyond trying to optimize, this is our scenario player and this is our attrition player. You just want people playing the thing they're best at. But I knew if we say that and then people see Pat regged as X-Force, they're like, what the fuck? Hold on. They're not doing the thing they said they were going to do. What's happening here? So
He's got 100 secret reps in our underground MCP lab.
I still got 2 weeks, to
a week
games.
until list lock, but yeah.
Yeah, then I know what to practice. I can't keep waffling.
Hell yeah. See, we don't have a comfort zone, but what we do have is a can-do attitude.
Yeah, we have like a could-do attitude. I could play a lot of games.
That's exactly right. Hell yeah.
And in reality, I'll probably play 2 more games. And then go to a local tournament and play not X-Force, because I don't own most of the models.
Oh. Right, well...
So he should go back to Wakanda, right? Like,
I mean, maybe. I think the problem with Wakanda is that it has more overlap with our team. Or like...
I think it's really an acceptable amount of overlap. I think if we end up on Wakanda, we'll be fine. I'm
the
prepared
overlap?
to see. Well, the big one is that he and I would both overlap on Hulk and Rhino. And I'm happy to give up one of them and let it be Pat's choice, but I don't think I can give up both. But, yeah. So, I mean, again, that's me trying to get Pat in a fictional comfort zone by offering him one of my 3 gigantic sons.
do you want to talk about where our overlaps are and talk about how we decided on how we trimmed our lists?
Yeah, so, well, I think the easiest one to talk about is you and me, Vince, since that's definitely locked in.
Yep.
Vince and I overlap, in like our tournament lists, our like default tournament list, if we were just going to a normal tournament list, we overlap with Sam, who's a splash for both of us. Obviously, neither of us are playing Avengers. But, and Vince, do you want to talk about that? Or
Yeah, sure. So Sam is incredibly corner case for me, and he's like mildly like Alex definitely plays him more. So as a result, I'm giving him to Alex. Sam is like a corner case tech piece for like very specific threats and very specific scenarios, and very specific matchups. And he's just like the best 3 at doing the stuff that he does. Like he pushes people off points. Like the model's nuts. But what Alex uses him for is like carting around Magneto and his other size 2 models and playing the scenario game. And that's just like more useful. He's going to be more useful for Alex more often. And like, that's how I feel about it.
He's not... Sorry. So the matchups you do play Sam, right, Vince, he's not like single-handedly making that matchup good for you. The way that like an Agent Venom splash into any list can really shore up webs, right? And like without my Agent Venom, I can't deal with webs. If I'm a Guardians player, right? Even if I'm not playing Agent Venom often, they need that boy to deal with webs, right? And so that's a case where a model not getting played often might still be a priority, but in this case, you can find other things in that spot, right? He's not carrying a matchup for you.
Yeah, he's like a slight optimization over Hawkeye in a lot of matchups, in some matchups, and specific threats.
Yeah, and he just fits in very well into Brotherhood in specific, and like both leaders. Like you said, he can move Magneto around, which is amazing. And then also obviously under Mystique, he is another 3 threat with a long move. And he has charge, so even better, who can push people off of secures and can place the token and et cetera, et cetera. So
he's
great Brotherhood.
A king on Scoundrels, and you playing like Scoundrels is kind of one of your big pillars of your list. Like you're very good at Scoundrels in your list, and you want to be the best at it. And if you gave up Sam and then got on Scoundrels, you could find people who could beat you at that. Like some people might have a better Scoundrels game than you without Sam, which is a bad thing to do when you're weakening one of your biggest strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, I think that like I think that one of the advantages of our team composition, and I actually think this is true basically regardless of what Pat plays, is that it's pretty hard to, well, I guess no solution will apply to all three of us. So there's like the questions that my list asks are like almost diametrically opposed to the questions that Vince's list asks, and neither of them have much to do. Like Vince's is maybe a little bit close to X-Force, but neither of them have much to do with Wakanda, and mine certainly has nothing to do with X-Force. So I think that like when people are placing their first person down into us in the like table pairing format, there are probably there's a relatively good chance I think that they could shoot themselves in the foot or get like screwed by my crisis selection or something like that in a way that they might not be prepared for, especially because our opponents also will be compromising in their lists, and like something like Shield requires niche splashes that people might not be able to bring in team tournaments. So
Yeah, I definitely think you guys have an advantage in that the spread of what your rosters threaten to do, regardless of the choice between Wakanda and X-Force, are pretty wide. Like, when I went to a 3-man team tournament last year, the local one, we had X-Men, Hellfire, and Wakanda, which felt good. Like, they're all 3 very good rosters, right? And we won that event and everything went well. But, like, that's still kind of like 3 sort of different flavors of scenario or attrition-y. Like, none of us was playing Guardians or Shield, right? None of us had the maximum murder plan. It was all some amount of mid-range to scenario, depending on where you draw the lines. And so I think it would be easier to put someone down first that can handle Hellfire, X-Men, and Wakanda, whereas trying to find a list that can handle Brotherhood, Shield, and X-Force is a much tougher ask.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go out of my way to do that, but it's great for you guys that it worked out that way.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like I think none of us, I mean, if I was in a position where I could play just like slam a fuck ton of Marvel games over the course of a month, I would be happy to change factions if I thought that there was like a huge value in doing so for a tournament like this. But that's part of the reason where I said we're focusing on comfort, is because I didn't have time to do that. So like I don't think that I could have picked up something for squad goals and be close to the performance I would be on even a slightly gimped Brotherhood. Maybe webs. I mean, we talked about that before. It's like maybe I could pivot to webs. I think that would probably be the only thing, because they're sort of similar in what they want to play. But we're like, sorry, not what they want to play, how they want to play. Not obviously they play totally different models, but yeah.
Yeah, and then
the other. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna pivot to what me and Pat had overlap, but
Yeah, do it.
it's essentially just Dynamo, and like
Bullseye.
Dynamo and Bullseye, which X-Force likes both of those. Dynamo, I think Shield just abuses the best. So I got Dynamo, and then we went back and forth a little bit on Bullseye, but I also managed to grab Bullseye as well, as I think Bullseye is... Yeah, I mean, I think Bullseye is really... It really helps shore up Shield's cover weakness. Overplaying my 2-threat, and I think that like X-Force is fine with the other 2 threats that they have access to. And also he might play Wakanda, and then we don't have that problem at all.
It is funny that
you play Bullseye a lot, right?
Yeah, I play Bullseye a ton.
Yeah, and I think generally X-Force doesn't want to play there too, unless math is forcing them to do it, but is usually pretty happy just playing like a 5, a 4, and a bunch of 3s, or however that works out.
They definitely play a 5 pretty frequently.
I think they should.
That's my analysis.
And they have a lot of 4s and 3s, so yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of good ones too.
Damn, there was another point I was going to bring up about... I don't fucking know. Oh, well. Oh, the other thing, I guess No, I remember now. The other thing about like building a team tournament team is figuring out what who you're going to try to get in front of the like problem matchups, like I said earlier. And I won't reveal all of my ingenious strategies on this podcast because we're 2 weeks away. But I think that like the simple way to do that, which is what I have done, is look at the other teams that are going to the tournament that have like confirmed good players and look at their list of matchups and try to figure out who we want to put in front of what. And I think I have a pretty good idea of all that type of stuff. And I think I have ideas for who we want to play into things like Webs and Hellfire Club. And I don't actually know if there's going to be any other players playing Shield, but I think I have an idea for how we want to deal with that if there are. And yeah, once you do all that, then you just got to play good, which is the hard part. But
Yeah, that's the part I'm not looking forward to.
nah, that's the part you're going to smash.
I was going to say, I don't know, like, I was going to talk a little bit about why I'm thinking about playing X-Force, I guess, but
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it without, like...
Secrets are for lame people. Just tell them all of our secrets.
No, I
he
don't
just
have
doesn't
any
want to
secrets.
insult the entire X-Force player base.
That's not exactly the problem. It's more that, like, so my Wakanda games have felt either amazing or awful, and there's very little middle ground. And like some of the games that have ended up feeling awful have like sort of come down to what seemed like a small decision early in the game, like, you know, unpacking on turn 1, or I should have picked the other side of the board or something for like a thing that would be really important on turn 2. And I guess I've also played a lot of games against X-Force because we have quite a few X-Force people locally. And maybe it's just Wakanda into X-Force, but all the X-Force players seem to make very similar decisions, and the variable is just like dice. With you know, like they're still making decisions that are better or worse, but the like magnitude of each of those decisions feels much smaller. So there's like, I don't know, more opportunity to just make like solid decisions on average and end up sort of above the average X-Force player. Whereas with Wakanda, if you just like make 1 or 2 bad decisions, you can just like lose the game. And I'm sure there are versions of that with X-Force. Like if I just, you know, if my first activation every turn is to double walk cable forward, like, yeah, I'll lose. But I probably won't do that. Whereas, yeah, I don't know. So
No, I get what you're saying, because like last Tuesday when I went to game night, I decided I was tired of thinking and just wanted to eat some crayons, so I brought Guardians out of the box and played Guardians of the Galaxy. Boy, it is very... Sometimes it's nice to just play the straightforward list where you point at models until they die, and then you pick new models to kill. And like, that's not to say it's like trivial to play those factions well, right? Like it is about target priority and managing dice. But your list is one of these two, Vince. You're no better.
There is so much subtlety to playing Shield. Get out of
You
town.
just shoot things, and then when people make bad
God,
choices, you
continue.
punish them.
Continue, Nate. You were eating crayons.
Yeah. And so I totally get what you're saying, right? And I do think there are these attrition-y factions where, like, you're not hinging on individual decisions being genius ones or terrible ones, right? You're just making enough small decisions that it averages out, right? And you just trust, you know, I'm gonna roll a lot of dice and it will even out. I'm gonna make a lot of attacks. If I screw up Rocket Raccoon a little bit, right, he shoots the wrong person once. That's a kind of minor part of what the list does in a turn. So I think you're onto something there.
This pivots into something I wanted to talk about, but I didn't know how to bring up or like add to a topic because it was just going to be me talking for 5 minutes. But I'm going to do it. Last night, Vince and Pat and I were at a social engagement, and our buddy Nick Kleeman was there, who Pat just slandered because Nick Kleeman's a really good X-Force player.
it's the best X-Force player we have and has destroyed me every time we've played.
Yeah, he owns me all the time too. Nick, well, we were talking about squad goals, as you might imagine. And Nick asked me why I wasn't playing webs, or said that he would like to see me play webs. Like, not specifically for squad goals necessarily, but just like that I should be trying out webs because they're broken, powerful, really good, whatever. I'm not trying to say I think they need nerfs necessarily, but they're extremely good. I think most or all of us agree that they're the best thing in the game right now, and their win condition is pretty similar to Brotherhood. And I didn't give Nick a particularly convincing answer yesterday, other than just I really like playing Brotherhood, which is true, and is a big part of the reason why I'm sticking to them. But I think I want to expand on that a little bit more. So Nick, I hope you still listen to this podcast. I think that so the thing that you guys were just talking about like how there's no overarching game plan for something like Guardians of the Galaxy or X-Force, and it's about making like reasonably good above the curve decisions in small ways over and over again until you win. That is sort of how I have usually played strategy games, tabletop games, and chess, and strategy games on the computer, and so forth, for I think most of my life. And I've never really like gotten... I've had some success in some games and less success in others, but I've never really like branched out into trying to learn how to do like really long-term strategical things. And one of the things that I think is pretty interesting about playing Brotherhood, and that is kind of keeping me coming back to the faction right now, is that I think, despite the fact that I think that Brotherhood and Webs are the two best extract factions in the game, and despite the fact that I think that they take largely similar extracts, I think Web Warriors are an extract faction where their game plan is sort of what you guys just said, which is to make a bunch of small but correct decisions over and over again until you win, with no sort of overarching strategy besides continue to grab points. And they are able to do that because their model quality is absurdly high, just like across the board, and their their leadership is just like always in play. Talking about the Miles leadership is like always in play, and they have a bunch of good cards and stuff. And so you just do that. You just like, how can I get more points this activation? This. How can I get more points this activation? This.
And that's
right?
why when we talk about like them just spamming 3 threats, right? Like all of their threes are pretty interchangeable, right? So they can continue to just make those decisions because it's just like, what's the problem? Throw a 3 threat at it. Right, they don't need to have a strategy for like a long-term plan for where the 3s go. You can just kind of put a bunch of them out there, and it will be fine because they're also redundant with one another.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no necessity in like list building other than for like a priority extract grab with like ARD or cat and mouse or whatever to do really specific list building stuff. Like there's no requirement for that for Web Warriors. You just slam all the Web Warriors in there and they're all probably going to participate. And I think Brotherhood is not like that. I think Brotherhood actually requires you, if you want to play the best Brotherhood game, to think about the game on like a longer term basis and like think about exactly 6 turns of play and think about exact numbers of points to get to 16 points, and not just trying to get more points every activation, but being like, how do I get to exactly 16 points before my opponent does, and thus end the game immediately. And I think that's because Brotherhood's more fragile. I also think it's because Brotherhood is at the top end more mobile, but not necessarily always more mobile. And I also think it's because they have more tricks, mostly with the Mystique leadership token and the 3... none of these are actually Brotherhood affiliated, but the 3 character cards that come from Brotherhood characters that can be out of activation: Deception, Pyrotechnics, and Do You Know Who I Am? And so I think that like I think it's really cool when people who are good at these types of games reveal that they've been playing a very specific long game the whole time and their opponent doesn't realize it. And I this happened to me one time in WTC in Guild Ball, where I was playing against Tim, one of the greatest Guild Ball players of all time, his first world champion, German player. He always won WTC. He's a fucking freak. I mean, he and his teammates, obviously it wasn't just him. Wow, I bored Vince to death. I'm keeping going anyway.
Yeah.
And my first WTC, I was playing against Tim, and I was playing a fighty affiliation where you just make good decisions over and over again, and then eventually you win. And he was playing scenario affiliation. And he, without explaining how Guild Ball works, he, halfway through the game, instead of scoring a goal, which is what you would call scenario in that game, he backed the ball up. And he suddenly revealed to me halfway through the game that he thought that with this specific board state, he could outfight me. And that he was aiming for a very specific 2 kills and 2 goals, which would immediately win him the game. And he was not planning to do anything else. And he had been like, he had totally outthought me without, I think, coming to that realization mid-game. He just, from the get-go, had this plan and had sort of hidden it from me until it was his time to strike. And I got owned. I mean, I lost that game, and we lost that round, and that was how we failed to win WTC. And, I mean, not just because I lost, but that was the round we lost. And I think that's really fucking cool. And I don't think I do that a lot as a player in these types of games. And I kind of want to be better at doing that. And I think that Brotherhood is kind of an interesting puzzle to try to figure out how to play that way. So that is why I have not switched to Web Warriors. But if, maybe I'll get angry that I'm not playing the best thing at all times, and then I'll switch.
Yeah, I mean, I think your interpretation of Brotherhood is definitely correct. And a thing I think is cool about that faction is that, like, I think out of almost all the factions, they have, like, the least amount of synergy. Right, they just have a bunch of independently powerful pieces, right? Like, yeah, there's synergy in that, like, Pyro can light something on fire and then Mystique can shoot it, right? I mean, you can't have, like, zero synergy. But they are very, like, every one of the models you play kind of approaches the game pretty differently. And even, like, the big boys that get lumped together, but, like, what Rhino can do versus what Juggernaut can do versus what Hulk can do is pretty different, right? Like, Rhino has displacement once a game. He can only use Rhinobery to displace things, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And then Juggernaut can pretty much, for most of the game, displaces one thing. He gets his one punch, and if he gets the wild, he displaces his thing, and that's it. And then Hulk is displacing a ton of things, right? And so, like, what they can do to solve problems is wildly different. Yeah. Which is not true of, like, the Web Warriors, where it's just like all of them can display shit. It's fine. Impact webbing versus a throw versus whatever versus web line. The thing's getting off the point. It'll be fine. You don't have that luxury, right? Every one of your models is a very specific tool with a specific job, and you have to piece them together.
Yeah, and I actually think, as much as both you and I, Nate, have made fun of S.H.I.E.L.D. for being, like, allegedly the Patricians faction, but secretly actually for babies.
Yeah.
I do think that, like, there's a similarity between Brotherhood and S.H.I.E.L.D. in this way, in that when I play Vince and then I talk to Vince about the game afterwards, the way he always characterizes his various tools in S.H.I.E.L.D., by which I mean, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. Mobile and Eye in the Sky and his 2 restricteds and stuff like that, he doesn't think about it the way I naturally do in the game. He thinks about each of those resources, like, ahead of time, being like, this is to counter that. Like, I'm going to Eye in the Sky when that model attacks me, whenever that will be in the game. At some point, he's going to charge and I'm an Eye in the Sky, or whatever the fuck. And I'm trying to train myself to think about Brotherhood that way. To think about it like, my Do You Know Who I Am this game is for this circumstance, and I've decided that on turn 0. And there could be an emergency where I do something different, but most of the time, but the intent is, I'm like, it doesn't matter whether it's turn 2 or turn 6, that's when I use Do You Know Who I Am. And I think that that's, like, an interesting thing that I've learned from Vince, because I really never think about game pieces that way. I almost always naturally just, so they pass the clock to me, and I'm like, oh, shit, it's my turn. What should I do? That seems bad. That seems bad. That seems good. Okay, I'll do that. And then pass the clock to them.
That's an interesting one, because I haven't really thought about things that way, but I also know when I play Brotherhood or when I played Jugs and X-Men for a while, because hopping Jugs around is a lot of fun, I would end so many games with Do You Know Who I Am in my hand. And that's games I won and games I lost. And it would still just be sitting there because I'm not planning ahead with it. I'm just going to, like, oh, I'll know when it's time. I'm going to trust my instincts here, and I'll see the best opportunity. And every time I end a game with that in my hand, I have fucked up. That card is too good
Yeah,
to
totally,
go unplayed.
totally, yeah. Definitely, you need to play it. It's one of the best cards in the game, I think. But
So that's
yeah.
a really interesting thought process that I need to noodle on.
Yeah. So like so much of playing Shield is like you do trust your instincts a lot, but also like you have to understand where the tempo is and where the tempo's going to be. So like understanding where your main tempo levers are. Like if Juggernaut, most Juggernaut players want to walk up and just like one tap a 3, right? Especially soft shield 3s like they are. So knowing that
I do love doing that.
knowing that you get to like that you're saving eye for a Juggernaut activation where he's going to walk up and bop something and you're going to be like, haha, lose 3 dice.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no, I mean that's essentially it. Like knowing that you can do that stuff, like I think I'm just trying to say that like it is really good to have a plan with your cards, but also you can be opportunistic with them as well. And it's like when you can do both is when you level up, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Totally. And, sometimes, I mean, even very good opponents, of course, will occasionally give you an opportunity that you did not see coming, and you're like, oh shit, I have to take this.
Yeah,
and if you
of
don't
course.
recognize that, then you fucked up because they've fucked up. And one of the most important skills in any strategy game like this is to allow your opponent to lose. So, if they lose, open the door for them. All right, that was 20 minutes on Brotherhood, which is why we drafted the squad goals roster. I don't remember what my connection to this was initially, but
It was why aren't you
Yeah.
playing Webs?
oh yeah, right. That was for you, Nick Kleeman. Shout outs. Nick Kleeman. Sorry that Pat said all that stuff about you.
Don't worry, I'll edit it out.
Obviously. Okay, cool. Glad.
All right. Have we been a size 3 taco truck?
Oh, and we have second goof.
Oh, we have second
Oh yeah,
goof.
we have one more goof.
Hell
we
yeah.
have one last thing for this episode. Pat, or listeners, sorry, Pat, I'll address you in a second. Listeners, this is Ask Pat, the Asking Pat game show. In the Asking Pat game show, actually, honestly, Pat's been talking a lot this episode, so Ask Pat, probably not necessary. But we're doing it anyway. It's the first episode of Ask Pat. Everyone's very excited. In Ask Pat, I, the member of this podcast with the least practical knowledge and the stupidest interests, ask Pat, the most practical and reliable person on this podcast, a question about how the real world works, and he answers.
Oh boy.
This has nothing to do with Marvel. Pat, my question for you this week is, okay, so there are high-speed training companies in Chicago, right? Like
Yeah.
people that do high-speed, yeah, and Wall Street is in New York, which is not Chicago, is my understanding, right?
Yes.
And high-speed trading happens fast enough that, like, the travel time, even for extremely expensive connections between Chicago and New York, is like a competitive disadvantage, right? Like, I mean, the people in Chicago literally make financial trades, slower than the ones in New York, right? They're executed slower, right?
Yeah, it's complicated in the sense that like there are different products that trade near New York that people would think of as New York, but it's all actually New
Oh.
Jersey. And then there's like derivatives linked to those products that trade in just outside of Chicago. And so like the price of the thing that trades near Chicago is sort of supposed to be intrinsically linked to a thing that trades in New Jersey. And there's a speed of light between New Jersey and Chicago, which is sort of like the theoretical boundary of those two things.
Right.
And yeah, like, the normal, you can get from New Jersey to Chicago on the normal internet. No one does that.
Yeah.
You can get from New Jersey to Chicago on, copper internet that you own privately from New Jersey to Chicago in like the straightest line you can get. And then there's like several different sort of more absurd levels people have gone to get from New Jersey to Chicago faster, of like so there was a company, I don't remember the name of it, but like in the mid 2010s that just like, there's actually a movie about it now. It's a dramatization of it. The movie's called The Hummingbird Project. It's not a good movie, but it's about
Never fucking heard about that.
Jesse
Yeah,
Eisenberg in it?
Watch a lot of movies.
It has a Skarsgård. I don't remember which one. But it's about this like company whose plan is to make the straightest fiber optic line from New Jersey to Chicago. It involves like, getting rights to drill it through mountains and shit.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds cool. It sounds like a cool project. It sucks that the movie sucks, but
Yeah, well, it was kind of a goofy thing to try and make a movie about. But yes, there's also like, so light goes through fiber optics slower than it does through air. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's also microwave towers, which you can make a straighter line with and have it go through air, not glass. So that's faster than that, and even faster in some situations is just like direct radio. So yeah, there's people spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on this kind of tech to go from like, I don't know what the actual, to shave microseconds off this thing.
right. So I understand why. Yeah, so I mean, that was the first part of my question. The second part, I guess, is like, I understand why they would invest money to make that faster. That part I totally get. But like, why are these companies in Chicago at all? Like, why are those derivatives traded in Chicago, and are being close to that, is being close to those derivatives actually enough of a competitive advantage as opposed to just having your company in New York or New Jersey? Because I mean, like, even with all this stuff, New York is also closer to New Jersey than Chicago is, right? So
Yeah, so the thing is that where the company is matters very little, and like one, if the people are doing the trading, you're already fucked.
okay,
like
I get that, right?
And sometimes even if the computer is doing the trading, you're already fucked. Like you need a piece of hardware that only knows how to trade to do the trading. In certain markets, basically. But so even like, for all of the exchanges that are throughout New Jersey, like the New York Stock Exchange, it's all of the trading there for that exchange happens in a specific data center, and all of the people doing the trading have computers in that same data center, separated from the exchange by an equal length of fiber optic cable.
Okay.
Because they like.
Oh, I see. So they
about-
artificially lengthen it. Yeah. Okay, that's hype. That rocks, actually.
But like, why are some of them in New Jersey and some of them in Chicago? Probably historical reasons. Like, no one was going to build a data center in Manhattan. It's just too expensive.
Yeah. Okay.
And then like, so the derivatives being in Chicago is just the Chicago Mercantile Exchange having acquired like 18,000 derivatives venues.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know, land in Aurora is cheaper than Chicago. So it's just like big companies throwing their weight around because they have like a monopoly on a financial product that people care a lot about. People being companies. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks for everybody for listening.
Practical.
That was say again.
Super practical.
Yeah, well, it's more practical than anything that I could speak with such expertise about. I mean, if you have any questions about 20th century American literature, you let me know.
Well,
anyway,
speaking of our expertise, Jesse Eisenberg is in this movie.
He is? Okay.
And you can watch
He
it.
is?
Yeah, and it's Alexander Skarsgård. That's the Skarsgård that's in it.
Hummingbird Project. Type. Wow, he looks exactly the same as he does in the Social Network.
Yeah.
Why, is he?
I forgot about
intentional?
the Selma Hayek character in this movie is fucking hilarious. Not intentional.
And it also looks like Skarsgård is just playing his character from Succession. It's funny that these people have just been typecast for like 15 years into like dweeb, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, dweeb who made themselves or someone else a comical amount of money.
And if you want to watch these dweebs, you can do so on Hulu.
Oh.
Is that our sponsor for this week?
Alfredo Size 3 Taco Truck, brought to you by a subsidiary of Hulu that has paid us secretly.
Cut.
All right, that's a
All
podcast.
right. So, Nate, we're just going to do the intro. Then, Nate, you're driving. All right?
Sure, I'll do my
Okay.
best.
Welcome to
It's gonna take a couple tries, isn't it?
no, I got it. It's important that I get it on one. Welcome to Alfredo's Size Through Taco Truck, a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast. The only podcast where we fucking Christ.
I think we should keep that in.
I agree.
I'm Vincent Curkov.